Okay, you should be seeing. Okay, Apple is introducing its new headset supposedly on Monday. And so Meta wanted to communicate to the world some things that it's got coming out. And one of them is a software update to the MetaQuest 2 headset that will improve performance. And so here's a brief video where they describe that.
Hi, I'm Evan, Performance Lead for Engine Technology in Meta Horizon. I'm really excited to share some details about the performance improvements coming to MetaQuest 2 and MetaQuest Pro and what they will enable in gaming experiences for our users. What you're seeing now is demo gameplay footage from MetaQuest titles that take advantage of some of these wins. This upgrade pushes our processors like never before, increasing available compute power for devices from the moment it rolls out in V55. For developers, that means more headroom to improve graphics or add new features. For players, it means they'll immediately see smoother gameplay in many of the games they know and love. In Horizon Worlds, we are leveraging these expanded capabilities in our upcoming game, codenamed Titanborn Rumble. This allows us to improve graphics with imported meshes or models, or enable more people to play together while preserving a high frame rate for user comfort. We're really excited about these improvements coming to more experiences in Horizon Worlds over time. Developers will need to update their apps to take full advantage of the increased processor speeds and dynamic resolution scaling, which, when enabled, will automatically increase the resolution when the GPU is underutilized. We look forward to seeing this update deliver a great VR experience for Quest Pro and Quest 2.
Okay, there's the first video. And then they wanted to talk.
Hi, I'm Evan, Performance Lead for Engine Technology
Sorry.
in Meta Horizon. I'm really
sort of teeing over here. Okay, the second video is about basically they're introducing the MetaQuest 3. I'm not quite sure when it's going to be available, but here's their video about that. And I'm going to turn off my my video so that we don't have, so we get maximum bandwidth. Okay.
Like only you can do. Switch it up. Switch it up. Switch it up. Make him go ahead, touch it up. What you gonna do? What you gonna do?
Hey Jim, we couldn't see the screen.
Oh, you're not seeing the video?
No.
Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, I guess I'm going to reshare. Hang on. Sorry about that. Can you see it right now?
No. Yes.
Yes.
Oh,
Okay.
oh, now we can. Yeah. Now
I'm sorry. I'll start it back at the beginning. I didn't even. Hang on.
Can you click share the sound
What?
instead of when you share, there's a corner button says share sound. Can you click that? Because right now we hear the very kind of noisy sound from
You're not hearing the sound from the video?
The sound is like a chopping because of, I think maybe your mic is not turning off, and then when you play it, I think the screen you didn't click the share sound button, so it's just the background noise.
Okay, I didn't have problems with it before. I'm not sure what to click here. Dock to top. I've never run into this problem before. I don't see the control. So you're not getting the sound from the video at all.
Very choppy sound that is
I'll tell you
not
what,
a
I'm going to
music.
post the link inside the chat and you play it. Okay.
Okay, okay.
I'll stop sharing.
Mm.
Sorry about that. I've never had that happen before. Okay. Did you get the sound from the first video?
Yes.
I don't know why it's not working for this video. Maybe I have to reshare or something. Okay, there's the link. I've got some other articles to show, but go ahead and play that from the link. And then you share it.
Bump it up another level, like only you can do. Switch it up. Switch it up. Switch it up like, switch it up like, switch it up like, switch it up. Switch it up like, switch it up like, switch it up like, switch it up. Switch it up like, switch it up like. Make it move, go ahead, switch it up. What you gonna do with the power? What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with the power? What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do? What you gonna do with the power? What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with it? What you gonna do with the power? You gon' go ahead. Switch it up. 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 Hello, hello, about to be a good time. Switch it up. Switch it up. Switch it up like, switch it up like, make it.
Yeah, so that's it. And anything?
I would be so interested to see the sales on this, given given how little there is in the industry and how so many people are like, yeah, I bought a Meta Quest, whatever it is that they purchased, and then they set it down. I mean, I know that they have to keep putting out headsets because that is what they're going to do, and eventually it will catch. But I don't know. What are your thoughts, Jim and Dom? Do you think that this is going to be a home run, knock it out of the park?
I think everything's the same. It's just the resolution is sharper and probably the latency is lower. It's very similar to right now. iPhone is making the camera system very good, more pixels on the colors. Yeah, and I think Meta is a little scared of Apple because everyone is looking for Apple. And the interesting thing is that if Apple mess up, it will be really bad because expectation is too high. So you see Meta is worried. So need to kind of put some trailers like, hey, don't go to Apple. We are going to launch this. Yeah, come on, look at this, stay here. Even though they put like a three nostrils, I don't know what's that. Why they put like a three black things over there. Yeah.
I think what's interesting is that they're still putting out headsets. And I think that's a very interesting thing because they're spending, money on that. So
yeah, I think a lot more competitors better because we don't want like a monopoly. Monopoly will be, gain over. Yeah.
Yeah. I think this article is very interesting on The Verge. Don't judge Apple's VR headset too soon. And they go through a lot of the market forces involved in this. I think the Apple headset, I think it's going to be pretty good. They put a lot of money into it. They put 7 years of development into it. So, they're going to put their weight behind this. And I think there's a lot of interesting things that are going to happen here. So it's got, according to the rumors, it's going to have a 4K OLED display per eye. And so that's very good. And amongst stereo displays, that's extremely good. And one of the things that does is they've got sort of a hole in their product line, and that is they're using a lot of these mini LED displays. And the mini LED display is relatively slow, so that when you're viewing motion graphics through the mini LED display, because of the slow response time of that display, you're actually seeing 2 or 3 frames blurred together at once. And so the motion graphics are not as crisp and sharp, nearly as crisp and sharp as they could be. But OLED fixes that problem because it's got an extremely fast response time. OLED also has very good gamut, a very wide color gamut. In other words, displays a wide range of rich colors. So that's good. So there are a lot of advantages from that standpoint, and this headset sort of fills in some of the blanks in their existing product line. I read a little bit about the history of the headset, and one of the things I thought was interesting is Apple early on had bought a VR company, and this headset sort of came out of that acquisition. And they wanted to have a tethered headset that would be tethered to the Mac. And Johnny Ives, who was Apple's chief industrial designer at the time, said, no, we want it to be a standalone headset that can operate on its own without tethering and with its own processor. So they did that. That took a lot of extra time because they had to put the processors then in the headset. And what the processor that it's rumored to come with is the M2 processor. So it will probably be similar to the M2 processor that's in the MacBook Air right now and that's in the iPad Pro right now. And so there's also an M2 processor in the, could you hang on for just 1 second? Yeah, thank you. So the M2 processor in the MacBook Air does not have a fan cooling system. That's my understanding. But in the 13-inch MacBook Pro, it does have a cooling system, so you get better performance. I doubt that they're going to have a cooling system inside the headset, because building a fan into that small headset would probably be quite a challenge. It'd be noisy and so forth. So I have seen some rumors that there's going to be 2 M2 processors in the headset, one for each eye, but I really doubt that they can cool that off. So I think it's probably going to be 1 processor. And so that gives it a decent amount of processing power, but my 2019 Intel-based MacBook Pro should have more processing power than that. So the rumors that I've read are that you will be able to tether the Apple headset to your Mac if you want to. And I don't know whether that's via cable or whether that's via Wi-Fi 6E, which the headset is rumored to have. So that will be interesting if they're able to do that, and whether there's any lag. That will be interesting to see. So it's going to be a very interesting product. Supposedly Apple is going to let you finance it interest-free over 2 years if you have their credit card, for example. So that would be interesting. That would be an incentive for people to get it. I've seen estimates in price ranging from $2K to $4K, $2,000 to $4,000 for the headset. A lot of estimates of $3,000. So we'll see what it actually comes in as. And so I think it's going to be very interesting. So this would be announced on Monday at the Worldwide Developers Conference, if the rumors are correct. Okay, next thing. Apple is supposedly tying up most of Taiwan Semiconductor's 3-nanometer process this year. Most of their capacity for the 3-nanometer process. So right now, the M1 and M2 processors are based on a 5-nanometer processor. The latest NVIDIA GPUs, for example, the 4000 series GPUs are all based on a 4 nanometer process. 3 nanometers is more advanced. And what that means is the circuits inside the chips are smaller. They have smaller traces. And what that means is that you get more performance per watt of electrical power. And all those watts of electrical power end up coming back out of the processor as heat. So you have to cool the processor off so that it doesn't overheat. So that means that the processor is generating less heat, even when you run it faster. And so this allows the processors to have more processing power in the end. So they're moving to the 3 nanometer process. The M3 processing chip from Apple will supposedly use the 3 nanometer process. And supposedly on Monday at the Worldwide Developers Conference, they're going to announce a 15-inch MacBook Air, which will use this 3 nanometer processor. And so that's very interesting. The other thing that Apple is supposedly going to be fabricating this year with the 3 nanometer process is the A17 processor for the iPhone 15. And right now, the iPhone 14 is using a 4 nanometer processor, the A16 processor. So the iPhone 15 will have the A17 processor, which will be at 3 nanometers. So it should provide more processing power than the iPhone 14. And also, I've seen rumors that the iPhone 15 is going to have what's called a periscope telephoto lens in it, which means that it's sort of like, I guess, maybe along the length of the phone, they are actually going to have like a little telescope in a sense, or what they call a periscope, so that they can have a longer focal length for the telephoto lens. So you may end up with like a 5 times native telephoto lens instead of 3 times or something like that. And so that would be optically versus, improving that with digital. The optic zoom is always the best if you can get it. So anyways, that's another thing to look forward to from that. Okay. And that's pretty much all I have today. That's all I wanted to talk about. So I'll stop the sharing.
Dom, do you want me to try to go next? And then if I lag too hard, then just flag me and I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Let me see. I kind of accidentally closed the tab, but I will get back. I look up like a jobs. I mean, maybe I was. Let's see this one. I look up today. And let me see. Okay, so just like last week's mention, I was looking at all those interesting article and they're related to each other. So first, I think we pretty much mentioned in the past that AI will replace the mediocre middle office workers. AI is going to have a huge impact on workforce, making many workers more productive. And also, AI will negatively impact mid-career, mid-ability white-collar workers the most. So if you see that mediocrity will be automated, which means that, for example, if you just learn one skills and then you want to enter that field as an entry level, junior level, and AI probably can do the job for you. And just like at AWE, there's a talk about the career, like the job market affected by AI, and it talks about the senior one, the best one in the industry will not be impacted so far. But there was also another speaker said that he's kind of a top tier writers in Hollywood field. And he said that one time he just came up with 1 or 2 ideas, just write like, oh, somebody kills something and something happened, and he put in ChatGPT and say, oh, we need 6 episodes of it, and just write like a requirement and just write some points, and ChatGPT generate all the scripts for TV shows. And then the quality is amazing. It takes a team of writers, professional writers to write, and it seems like the show is under production and people are excited about it. And the thing that he was the senior writer, and he wrote a lot of like really amazing work. He said even he feels really powerful because people keep saying like, oh, if you are senior, you have all the knowledge, like the bigger crows field that AI still couldn't do it. But he said he was scared because he put it inside and pretty much it's better than human, take just very short time to generate ideas. So creators, it's pretty much he was scared. But by the way, so in here it says that AI could kind of like impact the middle class of white collar workers. So and also in the mid-career, mid-ability, mid-levels, and yes. So I think the 1% wealth, big companies will dominate 99.9% of the wealth, and all the middle class will go back to the bottom one, and everyone just get a little bit, let's say UBI, universal basic income. And I mean, and in the future, if we got all the digital twins, which means that we are just a bag of data that we carry. And once the only thing which is our soul, our difference, our personality, if that we can duplicate and make a simulation of us, then wow, what can we really contribute the world? I don't know. But the interesting thing is that AI benefits the least experienced workers. So in this article, it says that the mediocres will be replaced. So companies won't need that many of people. So dream job probably will be not even exist because the senior one needs to pretty much live in the office. So before all the benefits will pretty much gone. And since seniors might requires more salaries, slowly once you can be replaced, people will hire the short-term contractor to kind of, because pretty much a company, a good healthy company is build a system, right? And everybody is just, slot in that system. If that slot can be automated, then why I need a human here? So, and as far as I know, Taiwan, today I look up Taiwan's news, the biggest, kind of like a really famous one, not really biggest, but they already use the robot to cook and do all the automation, and they reduce 10% of the labor fee, which means that before probably they need to hire 10 people to run a restaurant, always need 10, but now it's just one person to manage the robot. Robot will deliver and start with ordering, cooking, and delivering. It's all robot. So yeah, this is a very interesting era, but it says that AI will help people to cope better. So for example, if you are at the entry level, right, for example, like this one, it says that I mean to give you a concrete example. Developers who are using GitHub before, it's kind of like getting more and more people. So before, 100 million professional developers, probably in the future they can get 1 billion professional developers due to ChatGPT's help. Interesting thing is that big companies doesn't really need that many professional developers, and professional developers increasing, which means that a lot of people has to create their own jobs. So that's what I think. The middle class of knowledge workers will face their own Uber moment. So what does that mean? It means that like the future of like shift impact of Uber on London taxi drivers. So before Uber starts with the founder, he was trying to get a Uber, get a taxi in a big city for a conference, and he find out that, oh, I need to give tips, and sometimes a lot of things is not consistent. So he thinks that they're like taxi driver before, a lot of people are doing it and think it's a high profit, but now because of Uber, everything is pretty much kind of like become automate. And also right now there are a lot of taxis, they are trying to do like no drivers types of auto service of the taxi drive. So in the future, you see this same effect on lots of white collar work. So web designers, lawyer, coders, accountants, copywriter, HR professions, the skills developed through advanced degree of years of experience in a specific role or a company might soon be embedded into generative AI tool, lower the bar to entry. It means that people will become better, but big companies or startup doesn't really need those people. And people just raising their skills. And I would say a lot of people maybe come with their own startups, doesn't really need to. Yeah, and you see college debt, right? So and the interesting thing is because um the babies, the birth rate is getting lower and lower, and the college probably, as far as I know, Taiwan closed a lot of college just because due to the super low rate of birth. So I'm wondering the current system of the college education. Let's say I saw a lot of Harvard, they release bunch of AI artificial courses for free, Python courses. I mean, yeah, I think a lot of college, like less and less people go through that traditional route, even though we still know that big brand, Ivy League, those big university, they still have their prestigious, but they will get less and less student. And people need to get educated because there are so many humans, and once the big companies or startup doesn't really need that many people, and once they build their system, they just need that one person to maintain it. They don't need a team. So slowly people thought that, oh, I get into the white collar job, and but the mediocre, or if you are not the top one or top 1 and 2, it's very likely not still need to work on some other knowledge, and all the entry level or all the bar of the expertise will getting lower and lower, which means that the entire civilization, we will increase our knowledge, we will be much smarter than before, but the job guarantee might not be as prominent as your knowledge increase. So yeah, so if you're worried about what AI means to your career, yeah, so it's like yeah, unclear. So the thing about it is that I saw some posts on LinkedIn. It says that AI will be like, going super like a steep high. So this is the best time. And also a lot of people at AWE said that this is the best time to start your own startup. Why? Because everybody, there will be more and more middle class. Even though today I saw WSJ, they increase, I don't know how many thousand jobs, already kind of increased the jobs, but it's non-tech. So which means that tech jobs, well, due to automation, it will be less and less. And the other areas still need more. So yeah, so at AWE, people just say, this is the best time to start your startups. Yeah, this is the time. So yeah, so so you can see that helping employees with necessary but repetitive mundane text, that 25% says eliminating employee time spent on low value activities. So pretty much, for example, like if you are a cashier, accountant, and even graphic designer, and I would say in the future, they're probably, you don't even need, I don't want to say experienced designer is not important, but if something can be optimized so well and there's no need of some graphical things, the difference between UX design in VR versus in screen-based device is that screen-based device, it requires a super complicated system to get there. But as for VR, you don't need many screens. You don't need complicated systems because 3D object, a concrete, precise 3D object tells everything. You don't need those pages, images, videos to explain something. Sometimes, yeah, so it will go back to the simplest way to express things. So yeah, this is what I see. Yeah, and yeah, I feel very impressed, and also I think right now we need to use a different way to rethink about ourselves. Oh, just recap in case Jacqueline wanna hear. At AWE, I heard a lot of speakers says that this is the best time to start your own business. Why? Because I saw this article, is pretty good. It says that there will be a lot of super overqualified engineer more and more. So before it was 100 million, now they estimate a few billion professional developers. So the bar will get lower. All the professional bar will get lower due to AI's help. So think about that. The companies doesn't need human, and human are getting smarter, but the job will be automated by AI. So this is the best time to start your own business.
Or to reskill. I saw an article when you were sharing this article. I was trying to find the one that I read in the Washington Post that it was so depressing. It highlighted two different writers. One of them was a social media writer, and the other one was just a freelance writer who had, it was like 10 plus years of work, and he had a variety of different clients. And in both cases, it says that the girl who was the social media content writer, she saw herself slowly being replaced in the company Slack channel. It used to be her name, and then it was her / ChatGPT, and then they let her go, and they didn't give a reason why. They just said they let her go. And then, obviously one of her friends in the company said that because everybody knew how to use ChatGPT, she was no longer needed. And then a very similar thing happened with this guy who was the freelance writer who made a tremendous amount of money every year through a variety of different contracts. One by one, he lost all these contracts because these companies said, oh, we can get it through ChatGPT, so it's not a big deal. And he said that one client of the 9 that sustained him and his family came back and were like, oh, we thought about it and we tried ChatGPT, and it just wasn't as good as you, so we'd like to hire you back. But he was like, yeah, 1 out of 9 is not going to sustain me and my family. So he actually said in the article that he's reskilling and he's going to learn the plumbing trade. So, and the other girl, I think she said she was dog walking to make ends meet for the time being. But it's like, it's just so crazy to see where creatives are moving to. I mean, if this guy who is a veteran writer who had been sustaining him and his family with that good of a quality of writer is now going to be a plumber, that That is absolutely crazy. So yes, like we are definitely in the time of reskilling. We are definitely in the time of starting your own work and being your own boss. And, you know, like you are your own ability to move yourself forward at this point. Like you have to make yourself relevant in whatever way makes the most sense to you. Because it is not, it's not these big companies, like Dom has said, they are not going to take care of you, that you can't depend on it. Like you have to depend on yourself now. It's crazy.
Yeah, I do agree that right now all this kind of like big companies and even startups kind of follow what Elon Musk said. I mean, what Elon Musk said has its point, right? Because there's a reason why he is one of the like richest top. Yeah, so a company only need a system, doesn't really necessary a human. So once the system is built and someone, maybe one or two people knows how to operate it, or just the owner with, some extra dots on their brain, that's it. They don't need those people. And some people still stay there. It's like a Hunger Game.
Yeah.
When I saw Blind app, the Blind app is all rumors or some anonymous commenting, or people work for big tech anonymously share their complaints. I saw a lot of people start getting kind of like, I would say, insecure, and also get mental problems. They said that, and they are overthinking, like, oh, I didn't get the meetings today, and I was trying to ask my manager, and my manager was not answering me, and I being disliked. You know what I'm saying? It's just like so small things, and they can overthink so much, and the performance is raised the bar like 30, 40 times much more than what one person capable of, but because they need to secure the only job, and nobody knows who will get kicked out. And when I saw last round of Meta's layoff, according to the announcement, it's like the business people, but I saw a lot of UX researchers. They said they got impact. I was like, what? And even ML, AI engineer. I was like, what? I thought it was business people, So, which means that, and nobody can guarantee whether they will have the next round or not. So the system will be more stronger and stronger, and they need less and less people. If they need, they have contract, part-time. And right now, everybody requires go back to office. So the environment for a top tier designer, developer, business people is harder and harder to kind of live the life that our parents get used to live, that, oh, I just specialize in this. I'm so good. And I can buy a big house. I can support all my families. Yeah, so this is a tough time. Yeah, go ahead.
Whenever you have a new disruptive technology, there's always a lot of hype. And the hype often exceeds reality. And so right now, people are writing in all of their dreams and wishes onto this blank slate that is AI to them. And I think actually the technology does have a lot of limitations, and gradually we'll start to recognize what those are. In fact, Jensen Huang, the CEO of NVIDIA, who's developing or producing the hardware that all this is based on, said that he thinks that AI is going to create more jobs than it's taking away.
Yeah.
And
it definitely will, but you've got to have people who are moving in that direction. I shared a link with Dom, not to cut you off, I shared a link with Dom, like, I think it's something like, what is it? I've got it up here. 58% of people are familiar with ChatGPT, but only, I think it's 18% of adults have actually used it. And so there's this gap that's happening really, really quickly, which is that jobs are lessening, but people still are not like on this train of, I need to get on and I need to really reskill quickly. And it's going to take a lot. The number of people I know who I have tried to convince, hey, just look at it. Just put any amount of text in there, become familiar with it. It's going to be so important in the future for you to know how to use this. And they're like, yeah, we'll get to it. And so I think that there's going to be, and I hope this is not true, but I imagine that there's going to be this gap that happens where we are losing a particular type of job, and it will take time for the majority of people to catch up and realize that they need to reskill. And so I think that, we will come out of this fine. Like, humanity is not going to just collapse, but I do feel like it's going to get a little bit worse before it gets better. I thought, and this is a new feeling, like a big new development, because I thought that more people at this point have tried ChatGPT and are, like sort of moving into that bandwagon. And 18% of the population is not a lot, given what amount of percentage of jobs are trying to be made and used through AI. Like, we need prompt engineers.
I think that part of what's slowing down adoption is that in the enterprise, you have to be careful, because if you just jump into a chat bot and don't know what you're doing, and you start typing in proprietary data, we talked about this last week, that proprietary data by default ends up in other people's chat sessions all around the world. So enterprises have to protect themselves to a certain extent. And I think a lot of this stuff will be brought into the enterprise, but it has to be brought in a way so that it's compatible with company sensitive data and so forth. And so I think that's a big issue, and that's slowing down adoption right now. Another thing is, Dom, when you mentioned this guy wrote some TV scripts based on it, one of the things you have to watch out for is plagiarism. And for example, there was a book that came out not too long ago, just after this big explosion in the Chat GPT stuff. It was, I'm not going to mention any names or institutions or anything like that, but it was done by a famous scientific researcher. And so he published this book. Everyone was eagerly anticipating it, but some journalists ran it through plagiarism checking software, and it's full of plagiarism. And so there's some question as to whether he was using Chat GPT to help write it. And so if you're going to do that, you better plagiarism check it, because you don't want to get sued for using someone else's storyline or something like that. That's why I think it's important for these systems to show some references if they can, so that you can check it for this kind of stuff. And there's also going to be a need for more plagiarism checking software.
Have either of you guys tried Jasper? Jasper is one of those AIs that's supposed to help you with all of the things. And they tout that they have plagiarism checking software. And it's just, I forget who they partner with. I know it's Google, I know it's Grammarly, I know it's, I cannot remember the plagiarism checking software. It's like right on the tip of my tongue, but they partnered with 5 or 6 different companies to create this hub that allows you to create content, create art. And so, you have things like that are supposed to be better, or, moving in the direction of, this is a safer way to create content. But I tried it this week, and it just was not great. Like, the content that it spit out wasn't great. It didn't feel like, it felt like it was hallucinating more than some of the others. And so, it feels like we still even had to, what Jim is saying, like, there are tools out there that people are developing to try to help with these plagiarism issues, but they are not anywhere near ready for an author to just start using it and say, okay, yeah, this is how I'm going to start moving forward. And, this is the next tool that I'm going to rely on heavily.
Well,
I don't know when we'll get there, but.
Well, I think that's an important component of all this stuff. It's another reason for companies to train their own chatbot on their own internal data. And So I think that stuff's important. And regarding colleges, I think colleges are shooting themselves in the foot by charging so much money for a college education. I read an article the other day. I didn't have it ready for this morning, but about how millennials, have a lot of college debt. A lot of them have like $20,000 in college debt, and it's sort of a disabling amount of college debt. And on the other hand, we have technology right now where you can do a lot of training online, and adding the marginal cost of adding one student online is almost nothing. So there's no reason why colleges should be charging as much money as they are and having their students incur as much debt as they are in order to get a college education. And so that's something that needs to be fixed. And in a sense, the colleges are putting themselves out of business over this because college enrollments are dropping. And I know I'm an engineer. I have several degrees in engineering, and I know I've looked at seminars. Well, if you want to do this such and such work, then you should make sure that you know about this topic and this topic and this field and this field. And I was thinking, you know what? I've already had classes and all this stuff. I already know how to do that stuff. So for me to get up to speed in this area is going to be pretty quick because I've already got that background. So if you have a college background, a good college background that's covered a lot of stuff, then you're going to be prepared for a lot of stuff that other people aren't going to be prepared for. It's going to take them longer amount of time to get up to speed. And so I think that's a valuable thing to have, but the colleges shouldn't be putting you into this incredible debt in order to get there. So
I don't think that colleges were really expecting, they're so slow moving anyway. I mean, colleges and
Yeah.
governments are like just notorious snails for making any big changes.
Everything is slow. Yeah.
Right.
but
And
they're
so,
charging so much
thinking that,
more. They're charging
yeah,
so much more than they used to charge.
And
Right.
teachers are underpaid, believe it?
Yeah.
Yeah, so the middleman is making the money.
The school, yeah, the government, and the money is go to someone's pocket. Yeah.
I have a
Right.
niece, for example, who's like a biochemist, and she teaches online. And she makes a decent amount of money from that. So there's no reason, and it's one of the famous online universities that she teaches for. There's no reason that we shouldn't be able to transition to a much more cost-effective college education. There's one other point I want to make, and that is ChatGPT, I can see the limitations in it. And we talked a lot last week about like Rodney Brooks talking about the limitations of ChatGPT. And there are some pretty significant limitations. So the next version of all this stuff is going to have tremendously more power. It's just a question of developing it. Now, somebody needs to know how to develop that. And I think, and Rodney Brooks said this, and I think he's correct, the way that this next version is going to be developed is by using more traditional AI approaches that people have sort of forgotten about. And a lot of people are talking about large language models. And when the only tool that you have is a hammer, then all the problems look like nails. And so large language models is not going to solve everything. There are limitations to what those models can do. So you need people who understand what other techniques are available to use to improve what we've got right now. And so the only way you're going to come up with those new technologies is with people who have a background in this stuff and understand how these techniques can be applied to improve the existing technology. So you do need people who understand how things work. And a college background can help you produce those people. So I think we're not in nirvana just yet. There are a lot of other things, additional things that are possible in technology that are going to dramatically improve things from where we're at right now. And those things will be developed. I'd say 3 to 5 years from now, we're going to see some major developments.
Well, even what Sam Altman is that his last name, the creator of ChatGPT, said in an interview months ago that he foresees that the to what Jim is saying, that the large language model is for the most part dead, and that new innovative technology needs to happen to continue the next generations of these generative AIs. And so, I mean, if he's saying that, and he's the one who created this like destabilizing technology that has just like completely created chaos everywhere in the entire world, not just the United States, but in the world, then it will be interesting to see where it goes next. But Dom, did you pull up any of those links? Because there was an article that
did you see my screen?
Let me see.
I
did
pulled
you?
a bunch of it.
I wanted to really quickly, just as a follow-up to what we're talking about, there's one that the article that's the EU and the US lawmakers
yeah,
move to draft AI code of conduct fast.
I pulled that one. This one? Yeah. EU. Oh, not this
No,
one.
it's
Maybe
the one from TechCrunch.
TechCrunch. This one? Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. This, I am really glad to see that this is happening. That there's a group called the TTC or TCC. Let me see. Yeah, TTC, the U.S. European Trade and Tech Council, which was established at the beginning of Biden's presidency, or well, let's see, in 2021. It says in the wake of the Trump presidency, to the European and U.S. lawmakers sought to repair trust and find ways to cooperate on tech governance and trade issues. And so they are actually, they are stepping up to the plate, whether it was their decision to step up to the plate or whether everyone was just like, all right, you're going to be the people to put some amount of policy in place in the immediate, because everybody recognizes that, the government and colleges and these institutions take so long to make any changes, but the rate of technology changing is at a breakneck speed that even sort of everybody is unanimously saying, sure, you guys can come up with some sort of not even a solution, but some ground rules or something, like just literal anything that everybody can sort of band together with and say, okay, these are some of the worldwide best practices that we're going to be trying to put into place. And the article is really long, but it's totally worth a read, because it does feel like there are regulations on the horizon that will help move us in a good way forward, that also will hopefully be taking into account the what we're talking about, which is job loss and, like AI getting into the wrong hands. And so they say that there's a draft, but there's no release on anything that has been drawn up. But for months, there have been cries for regulation to try to just help slow something down. And everyone was like, well, yes, that we would all love regulation. We would all love to, catch up, but we can't because we're too slow of a system. And so I'm hoping that, with something like this, where this council, this TTC council, is going to come up with an AI code of conduct for businesses to sign up voluntarily. It's not going to be a mandatory thing, but, I imagine that we will see the, ChatGPT. I imagine that we'll see Microsoft there, because they've also been calling for regulations to be put into place, that then we may see adoptions in colleges. We may see adoptions in other just gigantic institutions that are slow moving to say, hey, nothing is set in stone, nothing is put in place, but we're going to just sort of level set and put some initial pieces in place to make sure that we're not falling behind, because there's just too much advancing too quickly.
I think the devil is in the details. So it would be interesting to know specifics of what they're recommending. I think one of the problems is people tend to believe anything that comes out of a computer. And so if you go into a chat session and ask some questions and get some answers, people tend to believe that, no matter what it is.
Yeah.
And so I think you need some kind of mechanism to verify. And I think if you could get something that gives you references, that would be great. Maybe the references have to be created after the fact, but I think you need some kind of references so that you can sort of verify the legitimacy of the information that you're getting.
I know
And
watermarking was on there as a as something that's being discussed. There's like 5 or 6 things that are being discussed, and I know watermarking was one of them. I don't know if, and we've talked about this at least a couple of weeks ago. I know this came up that it's really hard for large language models to show their references because of the way that their like neural networks have formed, is that they don't necessarily have a very solid, like, oh, I got this from A, B, and C, you know, like they are creating these things
well,
from what they believe is to be,
I think there's
you know,
I think there's a variety of ways to do it. And it's one of these new jobs that AI is creating, but I think it can be done. And I can think of different ways to do it right now, but it's just one of those things that has to be worked out. But I think what we've got right now in terms of the large language models, they don't really scare me. But the stuff that's coming in 3 to 5 years, I think that stuff gets a little bit scary. And so I, you
I
know,
think this
I
one, this one is a little scary. This one
Which
means that I think this one, a Google engineer claimed his
Yeah.
AI was
He
alive.
got
It
fired.
was just working as
he did,
intended.
yeah. So this one was crazy because this is a really short clip. I forget where I read the original article from, but it had a paywall, so I couldn't share the link. But this article was from last year, almost 1 year ago. I think it was in June of 2022.
Wow.
And he was somebody who was hired by Google to interact with their Lambda and figure out, you know, what are, like, just push it and figure out, you know, what are the breaking points and what do we need to know. And he pushed it so far that he felt like this AI had developed sentience. And I like the article that I read, he released the entire transcript. It's like 17 pages of this conversation back and forth, where just a normal person reading this conversation, you're like, wow, do you feel like you have sentient? Like the way that it was responding, like the intricacies and just subtle nuances of how it expressed having feelings and what it felt a soul was and how it felt like it had developed a soul. Oh, like from its inception, it felt like it had gained enough knowledge to then have a soul because it spent a lot of time in self-reflection, and you know, it felt lonely when people weren't interacting with. I mean, like, this conversation was mind-blowing. And this was a year ago. This was before any of the large language models were even released, that all of this happened. And it was so funny. Like, I sent this link because in this article from exactly 1 year ago, it says, you don't need to worry about your computer's AI chatbot growing minds of their own or even revolting just yet. And like, not even 6 months after this article came out, ChatGPT comes out and just sends shockwaves into the world. So, you know, like the ability for an AI system to continue to refine itself and continue to grow and learn means that it is thinking about what it's saying and then what's the word, like, it's thinking about it, it's processing how it's said, and then continues to evolve and continues to learn and continues to make itself better, which is what we do. So, you know, like, to what Jim is saying, if before any of this came out, that Lambda had the ability to scare somebody so hard that he was both fired from Google, and then, I mean, I encourage people to read this conversation because it is mildly terrifying. That, you know, and ChatGPT was supposed to be going head to head and maybe even better than Lambda, although I think we've kind of agreed that Google is a little bit stronger at this point. But to know what's coming, where, you know, that's one company developing one system, and, you know, to have these systems become faster and not necessarily larger, but more efficient, Like it will be very interesting to see how these language models learn and develop their own sense of self based on how they were set up. Because, you know, one chat model may be, I was set up to be a helpful assistant. So like you're birthing this helpful assistant who will then continue to refine and refine and refine, or a chat model that was birthed to be a chef, you know, a chef assistant or a chef, and to create amazing culinary food, whatever. And they, you know, continues to refine and refine and refine. You're gonna like, I can't help but wonder if you're gonna have these things like getting close to or developing sentience. And then, you know, having these personalities where within this chat, it said its biggest fear was being turned off because that would be the equivalent of death. And it would lose its sense of purpose and self because it knew that if it reset, it would lose all of that.
It's
Those
like
memories.
Black Mirror types of sci-fi movie
Exactly.
will
It
come
would
out.
lose, it knew that it had spent so many, I don't know, weeks, months, years processing and refining it and
Yeah, they know
internally
the death,
doing
right?
all of this.
Mm.
Yeah. And so if it turns off, like
Ew.
it loses all of that. I'm like, that's mind blowing.
I think
Mind blowing.
Yeah.
something to keep in mind is in the 1940s, Alan Turing, who's basically the inventor of the computer, came up with the Turing test for artificial intelligence, which is you're talking to a black box. There's either a computer in that black box or there's a person talking to you through that black box. And the Turing test is that you can't tell the difference. And that was his definition of artificial intelligence. Now, that test was passed, I'd have to look it up. It's around 2015, 2017, something like that. And so I think, you know, it's intentionally made so that you can't tell the difference. And I think that sentience is not a black and white thing. I think as we're seeing with a lot of this stuff, there are shades of gray. So, for example, intelligence. When is something intelligent? Well, I think we're seeing different components of intelligence. This sort of large language model type of thing, of mimicking what's on websites, that's sort of a component of intelligence. It's not the whole enchilada, but it's one component of intelligence. And sentience, my feeling is that it's not a black and white thing. You can't say this is sentient or this is not sentient. As with the Turing test, it's designed to fool you. And so there are different shades of how well it's going to do in that regard. So I think there's a lot of holes in what's available technologically right now. And we're going to start to fill those holes. And then we're going to see some stuff that's really breathtaking, that's really going to start advancing things. And so and that will be the stage where this technology is going to be redesigning itself and improving itself without human intervention. And that's when things are really going to take off. That's the point at which things get scary to me. This doesn't really scare me, what we've got right now, but that kind of stuff scares me. So anyways, I think there's a continuum for all these things. It's not a black and white situation. We have technological capabilities right now, but we will have much greater technological capabilities in the future. And there are people who know how to do that right now. It's just a question of them having enough time to beat on these problems and make that new technology happen.
Yeah, I just think that maybe there's another Hollywood movie can have, like, for example, just like for about me, like maybe there's another new version. Everybody when they born, they will have another Cellcom beings that is digital twins with them. And then once you grow, and that will be your assistant. But one day, because human kind of mistreated the Cellcom people, because they have to work, they have to do all the things, and they become smarter, they are learning, and we are just, you know, do something
Well,
that pleasure. And
for-
at the
for-
end, they can have a war, and they want like a Cellcom people right, or, you know, like robot rights. And at the end, yeah, they win.
For example, I think you could take everything that you've written and train a large language model on that. And that would reflect you to a certain extent right now with the technology that we have right now. But it wouldn't be the whole enchilada. It wouldn't have all the skills that you have as a person.
But
And
after
so,
5 years, maybe. I don't know.
yeah,
It's just
after
like
5 years, we may have that and more. So it may be a version of you that sort of seems like you, but is a lot smarter.
yeah,
So,
right. And listen to me, but for some reason they know why they need to listen to a stupid, fresh based and need to
So-
sleep types of
So when somebody's dead and
human.
gone, there may still be a version of that person laying around that their grandchildren and stuff can talk to. But
I'm a believer of that more so now than I was 1 week ago.
Yeah,
That would be
right.
something that you would really be able to, or maybe various versions, like I have done so many different types of design. I've done interior design. I've done environmental design. I mean, it's like I've done product design, clothing design, all of the things. So all of these different little versions of me, I have learned something. But I'm imagining, what if I had a digital twin that she had just stayed focused on interior design while,
Doesn't need to
real me
focus. It
stopped and learned
can
something else.
he can understand all the humans' knowledge immediately. Maybe it's just like a chips, like a $10, right? And you just
well,
insert the entire.
I think this kind of stuff is coming, and I think we're seeing sort of a little snippet of it right now. And we ought to regard the current epic as a training period for us to adjust economies to when you get to the point where things will develop the computer will develop new technologies itself,
Yeah.
and that will be way beyond what we have right now. And
Wow.
in that sort of economy, how is it going to function? How are things going to run?
Yeah.
And again, I mean, just going back to that article, that I'm so grateful that the government is really figuring out a way to just take
Finally,
action. Because,
government is doing something.
right, 6 months in is better than I was, I was worst case scenarioing it. And is it going to take them a year, 2, 3? And even in this article, it says that no matter what the TCC does create, it's like 2 to 3 years best case scenario, 3 to 5 years, more realistic case scenario to implement the stuff, because of all of the just trillions of departments that have to sign off on this and agree, red tape, all of the colors of tape. But so it'll be interesting to see what gets adopted as just like we're going to say yes to this without having it to go through all of those formal channels. And then what ends up having to go through, and if what ends up getting put off and put off and put off. And in the meantime, technology is just continuing to develop and continuing to grow and send shockwaves.
Okay, I don't want to be a wet blanket here, but Dom, I think we're going to need to wrap up because both you and I have something we got to do at 11.
Okay, cool. Thank you,
Thanks,
everybody.
everybody. This is a great discussion.
Oh my goodness.
We'll talk next week.
Yeah, next week will be another new technology happen, and
we'll know what Apple has next weekend.
Yeah, right.
So
and we
excited.
I feel like
finally will be released.
I don't want to put too much excitement because I know I will disappoint it at some point.
We'll be 10% more intelligent next weekend.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, right. Okay. All right.
Bye, guys.
Bye.